Hello and welcome to Filbert Flies and to this lesson in the Aerosoft CRJ. I'm joined today by Michael, who is a first officer for a US regional carrier on the CRJ and who also used to be a flight instructor, so there's probably no one better to take us through how to fly this aeroplane properly. So hello Michael, and thank you very much for agreeing to do this.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. Before we get started, do you mind telling us a little bit about your life in flight simulation and in real world flying?
Sure, yeah. My aviation enthusiasm started maybe about 10 years ago when I was a lot younger, and my parents got me Microsoft Flight Simulator 2002 for one of my birthdays,
Nice.
and I was very excited about that. I didn't know anything about flight simulators, but I was trying to fly these airplanes around with the mouse and keyboard, and I was having fun with it. Obviously not a serious flight simmer at that point, but it was enough to spark my interest.
Yeah.
And then the Flight Simulator 2004 came out, and that's when my real love began. I spent way too much money on add-ons, and I got a joystick, and I was spending a lot of hours behind the computer
Yeah.
learning how to fly these airplanes and growing the hobby and everything. And so after a while, I decided, it might be kind of cool to do this for a living and professionally. And so I started looking around for flight schools for opportunities like that. And
Yeah.
so I started building my flight hours after I learned how to fly, became a flight instructor for a couple years. And then I found myself in the airlines now. And I'm loving life. I'm living the dream, so to speak. And I can't imagine myself doing pretty much anything else for a career.
That's absolutely awesome. That's a path that I think many of us would like to tread or would have liked to have trodden. Yeah,
For
fantastic.
sure.
And how do you find the CRJ? Is this the first aircraft you've flown professionally?
Yes, I did some aerial photography in Piper Archers or Piper Cherokees and stuff like that. But this is the first, jet I've flown, and I really enjoy it. It's a blast to fly. It feels like a sports car,
Right.
and it's a lot of fun.
Excellent, excellent. It's really interesting. Thank you for the little introduction. And so today, what we're going to do is fly the CRJ from Atlanta to Washington Dulles in this rather nice Filbert Flies livery. And I'm going to pretend that I have absolutely no knowledge whatsoever, which isn't so far from the truth, to be honest with you. And if it's all right with you, you can take us through the whole process from setting the aircraft up from cold and dark to programming the CDUs and so on and so forth, all the way through till landing and ultimately shutting it down. That would be incredibly helpful, I think.
Sure, that sounds good. I'll do my best.
So here we are at Atlanta's stand Delta 32 in the cold and dark configuration. You can find the flight plan and everything else you need to know to follow along with this flight in the video description down below. So Michael, what is the very first thing we need to do?
Sure. So we're going to establish power to the airplane. So we'll do the safety check flows first. So we'll start on the left-hand side where the nose wheel steering switch is. We'll verify that is shut to off.
Which it is.
All right. Then we'll go up to the overhead panel. We'll verify that the hydraulic pumps are all in the off position.
Which they are, yeah.
Very good. Next, we'll go down to the landing gear lever and make sure that is set to the down position.
Yeah, that's in the down position.
Very good. Then we'll slide over to the flap lever and make sure that is in the up or zero position.
Yes, it is.
All right. And then the flight spoiler is just to the left of the thrust levers there. We'll make sure that is full forward and in the up position. Or I guess flight spoiler is down, but in the full forward position.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, and that is.
All right. Then we'll slide down to the radar control and verify that the radar is turned off.
Okay.
It's going to be just below the audio panel there.
Just below the audio panel here, down here. Yeah, and that's set to off, yeah.
All right, so the radar is off. We'll verify that our parking brake is set. So that'll just look like it's pulled up and twisted. There we go.
Yeah, which it is.
And then we'll slide over to the ADG manual release and make sure that that is flush and flat. That looks good.
Yeah.
The emergency flap lever, we're going to verify that that is set to, looks like it's correct now, that up position there.
Yeah.
On the far right. Cool. Then we're going to go up to the battery master switch and we'll flip that on.
Okay. And I'll just change the view to make that a bit clearer. Okay, battery master switch, flip it to on.
Yeah, and so we'll get a bunch of chimes, we'll get some of the lights that come on, and then we'll have two of the screens in the front on our panel start to show once that has been done.
Yes.
Cool. And so this is DC power. What we want to do is establish AC power. So what we'll do now is we'll verify that both the batteries, both the APU, the battery is working properly. So we can go down to the electrical synoptic page and select that.
Okay.
So we'll go down just a little bit farther. There we go.
Yeah.
And then we'll hit the electrical services page, and we'll look back up at our screens. So that's the AC electrical page, and so we'll hit it one more time to go to the DC electrical page.
Okay. And there we
Slide
have
up. All right, so we've got those green bars down at the bottom. We're going to verify that those are at least 22 volts for both the main battery and the APU battery there.
Okay, and they are, yeah.
All right, very good. So now what we can do is, if we had external power connected, we could establish AC power with the external power, or we can start our APU.
Right. Okay.
So whichever one you want to go with.
Let's start the APU, shall we?
Okay, sounds good. So we'll go back to our status synoptic page instead of the electrical page.
Yes.
There we go. Then we'll slide up to our overhead panel where the APU controls are.
Okay.
We're going to select the power fuel button.
Power fuel button.
One on the left. And then we'll come down to our synoptic page and just verify that we have a couple messages. You'll see the APU invite, the APU SOB open, the APU gauges pop open, and as well as the APU door open.
Yes.
So once those four things pop up, we're good to start it. So now we can select the start-stop switch on the APU.
Start-stop.
There we go. And then that start light pops up.
Yep.
Cool. So then we can just monitor our synoptic page, make sure that the RPM is spinning up as it should be.
Yeah, looks to be.
Very good. And then once that gets to 100% RPM, obviously the APU generator, which should be in the on position right now, I think it usually is for the cold and dark setup, it'll automatically kick on our AC power.
Okay, let's have a little look for that. So, APU gen.
Yep, so you've got the off reset, and then they should all be in auto.
Yes.
So they're in the correct position.
Okay, and if we had wanted to use external power instead, what would we have done there?
Yeah, so I think the Aerosoft CRJ on the tablet has an option to connect that.
Yes.
We could actually do that if you want, just to see what it looks like.
Let's have a look. So we'll go over to the tablet and ground power cart.
There it is, yep. So we'll click that.
Yeah.
It'll show connected, and then we can go back up to our electrical panel up on the overhead panel, and you'll see that green available light up there.
Yes.
So if we wanted to connect to the external power, we could push that button, then we could have external power without the APU running.
Right, okay. What would you expect this button to do when we push it? Anything?
Nothing really.
Okay.
You'll notice that it would go from the green avail to the white in use section below it. The reason why it didn't do that now is because of the AC power priority. If the APU is running, the generator is going to pull it off the APU generator instead.
I see.
So if the APU was not running and we pressed the external power when it was there, you'll see instead of the green avail, you'd see a white in use right below that. And you'd be generating AC power from the external card. Interesting.
Thank you. Well, as we've got the APU running, I guess we can get rid of the ground power card.
Sure.
Okay, so we've got power. What do we do now?
Right. So this would typically be the time when we've done the safety check flow. We've got power. We would then go through our checklist to verify we've done all the appropriate tasks.
Okay.
So I guess we could go to the checklist on the Aerosoft CRJ. I haven't gotten a great look at those, but we can just verify if we've done all the things it wants us to do.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Yeah, so it looks like the first check is the originating check there, but if we look at the Aerosoft CRJ manual, we might have a safety check task so we can make sure that we've done all the appropriate things on.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Okay, yeah, so volume 4, normal operation checklist. There is indeed a safety checklist in there. So yeah, let's go through that. Okay, so safety check then. The circuit breakers should be closed.
Yep.
And they are on the back wall, and I think it's safe to assume that they are all closed, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
In the sim, I hasten to add. Nose wheel steering switch we checked, and that's off. Hydraulic pumps we checked, and they are off. The landing gear lever is down. The flight spoiler lever is retracted. Slats and flaps lever is set. Radar, we had a look down here, that's off. ADG manual release switch we checked. The emergency flap switch we also checked. Battery master switch is on, APU is on, AC electrics we've had a look at and they're okay. IRSs.
All right, so those actually, this is where the real world for me is actually different. So the CRJs that I fly actually don't have the IRSs. But what we can do is we can set those both to the nav, because I believe that's how you use them. Those are going to be down on the lower pedestal on the left-hand side.
Yes, there they are.
There we go.
And I've just taken the parking brake off while trying to click the switch.
Hopefully our chocks are still in.
Yeah. So I have to ask about this. So if you don't have IRSs on your planes, how do they work?
Yeah, so we just use the GPSs. I think that's how they initialize themselves. There's a couple of the CRJs in our fleet that have those associated, but I haven't flown one of those airplanes in quite a long time.
Okay, cool.
So.
Right, on with the checklist then. Emergency equipment, we can assume we have. Gear and safety pins, we can assume we have on board. Airplane documents, sorry, I'm talking to an American, checked. And hydraulic 3A pump. Now, I've heard different things about this. What do you do with that at this point?
Normally, we actually leave it off, but that will come on later, so it wouldn't be a problem to turn it on at this point.
Okay, all right. Well, let's leave it off for now if that's what you do. And FMS initialization, we haven't done that.
Right. So now that we've got AC power established, we can initialize the FMS. Now, there's a couple ways we can do this. Normally, for us, that's just signing into our company charts and stuff on our tablet, and that way the company knows we're on board and all that good stuff. I'm not sure. I think this is just talking about the initialization and not actually setting up the flight, because normally what we would do in the real airplane is do our originating check first, get all that established, and then we can plug in all of our data and values into the FMS after that. Okay, fair enough. So what should we do with it now? Nothing? Yeah, we can just leave it there.
Leave it for now. Okay.
In the real world, we'd have our ACARs and our other things that we can set up like that. But in the sim, I don't think they have that functionality.
No, so, I don't think so.
Yeah. So we can just leave that as is, and then I guess we can call the safety check complete and move on to the originating check. All right, so for the originating check, we're just going to basically go through all the panels and switches and make sure they're in the correct position for originating a flight. So we'll start up at the overhead panel in the top left, and we'll work our way from there. So the electrical power page, we've got all our switches there. They look to be in the correct position this time. DC service is off, battery master is on, AC external power is extinguished there. We've got both of our IDGs, or our generators. Those should be dark and guarded. The AC essential transfer light, that's off, that's good. All our gens are going to be into the auto position.
Yep.
And I guess as a side note, the nice thing about the CRJ is if you're in doing the right thing, most of the switches should be dark, and so that's typically a good sign. Okay. So everything on the electrical power looks good. So we'll just go down to our fire detection, fire exit monitor test.
Yep.
And if it was the first flight of the day, we could press that button in. So we can press that now.
Okay.
And normally you would do this before you establish AC power, but I don't think it's going to hurt anything to do it now.
Okay. All right.
So when you press that in, you're going to look down on the display down at the bottom, and you're just going to see that it says fire system OK in green on the ED2 there. And then you'll also see some of the warning lights and fire lights come on as well.
Yeah, I certainly saw the green. It's very hard to get these both in view, and for some reason pop-up panels don't record on Streamlabs, so this is as good as you're getting.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
We'll take that. So we'll just continue down the panel there. We've got our hydraulic shutoff valves. Those are going to be dark and guarded as well, so that looks good.
Yeah.
External lights, we can turn on our navigation lights, and if it was nighttime, we could also turn on our logo lights. I guess we can leave that off for now.
Okay.
So then we'll go up to the middle section, the top middle for our fuel.
Yeah.
Everything looks good in the correct position for that. Those are just showing it up because we don't have them on right now. We'll turn those on when we're ready to start the engines.
Okay.
Everything else up there looks good. Then we'll go down to our bleed air panel there.
Yes.
And the interesting thing about the 700 is a lot of this is done in auto. I also fly the CRJ 200, and then we actually have to control the bleeds manually, which is a lot more work for us. But the nice thing about this is usually we're going to leave all of those switches and the auto, normal, both engine, and the closed switch lever right there. So all that looks good.
Okay.
Next, we'll go down to APU. We've already started that.
Yeah.
The green light is on, showing that we're generating power from the APU generator, which is good.
Yes.
Next, we'll slide down to the ignition start switches. Those should all obviously be off. So that looks good. And then our hydraulic pumps, what we'll do is the hydraulic test. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch all of them to on except for 3A. So the first and third and fourth switches there, we're going to flip those to the up position.
Okay.
And then we'll go down to our hydraulic synoptic page, and we'll see what it's showing us there.
Okay, hydraulic.
All right, so typically you're just making sure everything's in the green. You should see about 3,000 PSI on each one there, and all the the hydraulic temperatures and quantities look good.
Yeah.
So next up, we'll go back up to the hydraulic switches, and we'll switch all of them to the down position. So those will be the auto and on position is what they call it.
Okay.
So 3A will be on, and the rest of them will be in auto.
Okay.
Then we'll go back down to our hydraulic synoptic page. You'll hear the chime there. That's because we're getting some low pressure in the system because we just turned some of those to auto, which they're not going to be on at this time. So now we're just verifying that 3A is working, that the green circle around 3A is green.
Yes.
And we've still got 3,000 PSI in hydraulic system 3.
Right.
So that looks good.
Good.
All right. So I guess now we normally would actually turn the hydraulic 3A pump off at this time.
Okay.
So we can go back to the hydraulic switches. We'll turn the 3A pump to the off position.
Which is this one, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. We'll turn that back on on the engine start.
Okay.
Checklist there. So all right. So now we'll go up to the cabin pressure.
Yeah.
Up there, everything looks good in the right position there. So we can just move on from there.
Okay.
Short of spelling out all the individual switch positions.
Yeah, no, looks good is enough for me.
We've got the air conditioning panel up next. So since we've had the APU running for a bit, we should be able to turn the packs on, our air conditioning kits. Okay. So right now you'll notice they're both off. So we can press both of those in.
Right, done.
Yeah, they turn dark, so that's typically what we want.
Yeah.
We can turn our recirculating fan to the on position.
What does it do, the recirculating fan?
So it just basically helps to, it's not air conditioning. It's like having just a fan running, circulating the existing air in the system without actually having the air conditioning on. So if you didn't have the APU and the packs on, it would just basically be circulating air. So you'd actually get airflow, but it's not going to be the conditioned air, basically.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then we'll slide down to our aft cargo conditioned air. We'll flip that to the on position right in between those two knobs. There we go.
Okay.
All right. Anti-ice, we don't need a whole lot of that right now, obviously, but we do need the windshield heat. So I believe those are in the off position now. We'll switch those on to both low.
Okay.
Which is the middle detent there.
And when would you use high?
There's been a couple of times when the windshield gets iced up, and it's hard to see outside, and if the low windshield heat's not able to keep up, then we could momentarily switch those to high. It's not going to hurt anything with it in high. It's just usually the low is good enough to keep it good.
Right. Okay.
Right. Cool. So down the miscellaneous lights there, we don't need the dome light or the I guess that's the standby compass light right now since it's in the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
And then the overhead panel, that's just the overhead light, so we don't need that either.
Okay.
Cool. So after that, we can slide over down to the little section below the overhead panel, the landing light section. Obviously, we're going to leave all those off. Our recog tach light is off.
Yeah.
The ELC switch will remain in the arm position.
Mm-hmm.
Passenger oxygen obviously is going to remain dark and closed.
Yeah.
We can turn on our no smoking sign. And if passengers are starting to come on, we could also turn the seatbelt signs on as well if we wanted to do that.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. And then the emergency light switch is going to be into the down position, which is the arm position.
Okay, great.
All right. Cool. So that completes most of the overhead panel section right there.
Right.
And what we'll do next is I guess we can do the stall test. And it'll be interesting to see what the CRJ does with that. So, kind of where the warning lights for the engine fire and stuff like that, you'll also see the stall guarded switch.
Yeah.
We can lift that up and press that button and see what happens.
Oh, do I keep it held in?
I don't think you need to keep it held in, at least in the real airplane. But let's see. Yeah, let's see if you do hold it.
Okay.
What happens?
Okay.
There we go.
Right.
That red light's flashing, and then that'll activate the stick shaker and the stick pusher to make sure that those are actually working. So that was that vibrating sound I guess we heard.
Yes, we may actually see it if I move down a little bit. Oh, yeah.
There we go. Cool.
Awesome.
So that looks like it's working appropriately.
Yeah.
Next we can check our clocks, which are both the captain and the first officer have those. So on the left and right hand side. I'm assuming since it's the simulator, they're both going to be extremely accurate.
Yes.
So
and if
we
they're
can
not,
go with that.
I don't suppose there's much we can do about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So next thing we can do is we can go and do our CVR test, which is the cockpit voice recorder test for our first flight. And that's going to be that green button just below the PFD there.
Okay.
It looks like we'll hold that for 5 seconds. See if that green light comes on. There it is.
It does.
Cool.
And
So
that's
that looks good. That's it.
Right. Easy.
Cool. So next we'll slide over to our standby instruments, which in this version of the CRJ looks like they're right in the middle there.
Yeah.
Looks like it's, operating normally.
Yeah.
Some of them have like an old school attitude indicator, which has to be caged or uncaged, depending on how things are going. So it looks like since it's electronic, everything's working well there.
Okay, good.
Cool. And then next we can go down to our oxygen pressure. So we can go to our status synoptic page instead of the hydraulic.
Status, yeah.
All right. And we'll go back up there. You'll see the oxygen pressure up at the top there. Looks like it's 1850, so that looks like it's a good amount.
1850. Ah, yes. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just above the cabin temperature there.
Yeah.
Cool. So our flow continues down to the upper pedestal. So this is where, the landing gear and all the FMS boxes are there. So next we've got the anti-skid test right there, just to the left of the landing gear lever. So we can make sure our parking brake is released.
Okay.
And then we'll flip that switch to the off position.
Okay. So the parking brake is down here. That's released. And we flick this to off.
All right, and we should see the 2 anti-skid messages pop up there, which is good.
Yes.
So we can flip that back to the arms.
Okay.
And re-engage the parking brake.
Okay.
All right, next up we have the main landing gear bay overheat test. So then we'll, just below that test, we'll press hold to the up position, that switch right there, yep.
Gear bay overheat.
and we'll hear the gear bay overheats and all those messages and everything. So that looks good.
Yeah.
Then we'll do the same thing with the one switch just to the right of that.
Okay. Main landing gear overheat fail.
All right. So that looks good. All right. Next thing, we can slide down. All those switches there in the middle look to be in the right position. If you wanted to increase the brightness on those indicator lights, you could make sure that was in the bright position, or if it's at nighttime and they're too bright, you could switch those to the dim position on those switches just to the below the landing gear lever. If you wanted to do that.
Yes, up here.
That would dim the lights or make them bright.
Sure.
And then the lamp test is kind of cool. You can flip those to either the 1 or the 2 position, and basically all the lights that are on the panel would light up like a Christmas tree. That's one we like to do with kids visit the cockpit, just to show them all the pretty.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Their eyes get all big and everything, so that's a fun one.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
cool. So moving on from there, it looks like that's everything on that portion of the section. All right, so next up we'll move down to the thrust lever section, just below the FMS computers there.
Okay.
We'll verify that the pitch disconnect and roll disconnect handles are stowed, which are those big red knobs there, which it looks like they are. The spoilers and ground lift dumping on the left-hand side there, we're going to make sure that is set to auto.
Set that to auto, yes, which it is.
There we go. Then we can arm the thrust reversers by flipping those into the up position there.
Okay.
All right, and then we'll check on the second display there on the right to make sure that the thrust reverse armed advisory messages are up. All right, looks like they are up at the top there.
Oh yes, yeah,
right,
there they are. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we'll verify that the flight spoiler lever is set to the 0 degrees, which is all the way forward.
Which it is.
We'll verify the left and right thrust lever are in the shut-off position.
Yeah.
Which is all the way down there. The thrust reverser levers, that's a tongue twister, are both stowed, so those are both down. That looks good.
Yes.
And verify again that the flaps are set to 0.
Yes, which they are.
And that's it for that section. So now we can go down to the lower pedestal section. We can check the RTU, the radio tuning unit, and we can do the TCAS test there. So if we zoom in on that panel, I'm actually not sure if the sim will do this, but I guess we can try it out.
Yeah,
so
let's see.
On the right there, we see TCAS auto and absolute there. So we'll press that soft key right to the next of that.
Okay.
And then what we can do is we can press the third one down from the left next to the test.
Okay.
There. And see if that does anything. If we go up to the MFD on the map. Oh, there we go. Yeah. TCAS system says okay, so it does work. Cool.
It does. Awesome.
So that looks good. So next up, we can go down to the stab trim and mock trim buttons.
Yes.
And we can push all 3 of those buttons in to engage them.
Okay.
All right, and then we can just verify on the display that the stab and mock trim messages aren't displayed up there, which it looks like they aren't. So that's good.
Good.
All right, next we can go down to the fans section down there. We're just going to make sure that those are both in normal.
Yeah, which they are.
Display fan, avionics. Yep. All right, so that looks good. We're going to make sure that we've already put the IRS switches into nav, so that's good.
We have.
All right, so next we can go up to the middle portion, the middle upper portion, where the aileron and rudder trim are.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is we can open up the flight control synoptic page.
Flight control synoptic page, yeah.
All right, and we can actually do this from the other page as well, but I like to do it from here. And then we're just going to run the aileron trim and the rudder trim back and forth.
Okay.
Into the full direction and be able to make sure that that is working appropriately.
Right. So there are 2 switches for the aileron trim and 1 for the rudder. What's all that about?
Right. So there's two switches on there just to make sure that you don't accidentally move one. So if you accidentally bump it, it's not going to actually move the whole thing. So you have to make sure that you actively press both of them.
Okay.
Just to make sure that you're actually wanting to move the aileron trim there.
Yeah, okay, so we'll go left first. And yeah, the aileron trim's moving all the way to the left.
All right.
And for the sake of this video not going on for too long, I think we can assume that that has gone all the way to the left.
That sounds good. The real airplane goes a little faster on the trim.
Right. So we'll move it back to the right.
And then, of course, you'll notice that the little wings are white there. Once it's green, that means it's centered.
Right, okay. So there it is, going through the center. And then we would move it and wait for it to go all the way to the right. But let's move it back to the middle for now.
That sounds good.
And in the sim, I believe that you can actually operate just one of the two switches. Yes, that does seem to be the case. And it's going to take me a little while to get it back in the middle.
Somewhere close is usually okay.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Oh, I've got to do it. They don't necessarily have to watch it, but I do have to do it. There we are, back in the middle.
Nice and green. I like it. All right, so next up we can do the same with the rudder.
Okay.
This one should be a little bit easier.
Okay. Okay, yep, so all the way to the right, all the way to the left.
That is correct.
There we are, and back in the middle.
Perfect. All
What's
right.
next?
And we can just move down underneath that. We just have some lighting switches. If it was nighttime, we could change the lighting. And then right below that, we've got the yaw damper switches, so we can push those in if they haven't been already yet.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we've done that yet.
All right. We're just going to verify that all of those switches down below those 4 black buttons are in the norms section. So that all looks good.
Yep.
Next, we can slide over to that cargo Firex section right there. We're just going to make sure that those switches are guarded and deselected, which means they're just blackened out. Okay. Yeah, and then we can just make sure that the landing gear release buttons or the handle just down below there is fully stowed and everything, and just that whole section looks clean, which we probably already did during the safety check.
Yeah, still looking good though.
I think that about does it for the originating check to get all the switches in the correct position.
Awesome. Well, let's move back to the EFB and have a quick check of the originating checklist.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that all looks pretty good to me.
Very good. So, normally once we've done the originating check, the airplane's all ready to go for our flight. So what we can do next is program the FMS with our flight data for today.
Excellent. Right, here we are, FMS time.
All right, sounds good. So what we can do is, in the real airplane, what we would do, if there was a previous flight that came in and it had their old flight data in there, what we would do is clear out the box or clean it up, so to speak. And the way we could do that is we would grab our secondary database there in the line select key and place it on top of the active, just to kind of swap databases and then re-swap the current one back in. Okay. I don't think the Aerosoft CRJ will do that. We can try it.
Let's have a little look. I'm curious. No.
Yeah, it's not going to work. Okay, well, at least we're already starting from a clean slate, so that's good.
Yes.
So what we can do is we'll go to the index page.
Yep.
So what we can do first is we can go to the position init page, which is the second line select key there.
Yes.
All right. We can type in our originating airport, which is Atlanta, or KATL, into that airport section right there.
Right.
And then what we'll do is we'll hit the next page and we'll grab our GPS information.
Yep.
In our line select key. There we go. And then we'll come back and paste it into our set position.
Okay.
And that will kind of tell the system where we're starting out from. So that looks good.
Right.
All right. Next, we'll hit our index, go back to our index page.
Yeah.
We can go to the IRS control button there.
Okay.
and we'll just verify that that's enabled and good to go, which it is.
Yes.
So we can go back to our index page.
Yep.
Our VOR DME control next, just below the IRS.
Yeah.
That looks good there. Yes.
So these should both say yes, basically, should they?
Yeah, and I'm assuming so. In the planes that we fly, we actually don't have that page, but normally what we're doing here is verifying that all the systems are throwing data to the FMS appropriately.
Okay.
So next we can go to the GNSS control, or GPS information, verify that those are both enabled and good to go, which looks like they are.
Yes.
We can go back to the index, and that basically clears it up from here. So we can go to our flight plan page.
Okay. Flight plan.
And we can start inputting our data.
Now, this has always interested me. How often do you input the flight plan manually, and how often do you get it through ACAS or from a database?
That's actually a good question. When I first started doing it, we have company routes that are stored in there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I noticed was that they weren't always accurate, and so we were always having to change like minor things based off of our clearance. And so in order to make sure that it was actually accurate and we didn't miss anything that might have been wrong, I've just started entering everything manually ever since that. So.
Oh, that's really interesting. Right.
Yeah. Because
Cool.
sometimes the standard routes weren't updated and they'd give us something different. And so just to make sure that we didn't accidentally miss something, we would put it in manually.
Right.
All right. So we can type in our origin airport and our destination airport. So Atlanta and Dulles.
Yep.
All right. And then we can put in our flight number if we have one down at the bottom right.
Yes, I did make up a flight number, which was FBF 359. FBF 359. Okay, and that goes in there.
So yeah, we've got that flight number in there, which is pretty important. So if we go to the stat page, instead of the flight control, again, we'll see that should be displayed up at the top section of that.
Yes.
When we're doing the radios, it's nice to look up there and just verify that the flight number is correct. Because if we're doing 3 or 4 flights a day, it can be hard to remember which flight number you are. So
yeah, I can imagine. And I'd never noticed that before. So very interesting.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So once that's there, we can hit the execute knob to punch that in, and then I guess we can just put the rest of our flight plan data in. So that would include our departure runway and our SID and all the fixes.
Right, okay.
Okay, so next we can put our departure runway and our SID and our transition in. So we can do that by going to the departure and arrivals button there.
Okay.
We can select the departure, which is the Jack 2.
Okay, Jack 2.
All right, and then our departure runway is going to be 26 left. So we can go and find that.
26 left.
And then we can select the Kellen transition.
Okay.
And let's go to the legs page and just verify that that's where we want it before we execute.
Okay.
So impasse, Zelen, smog, Jack, shut, befoot, or whatever that is.
Yeah, God knows.
Befout, and Kellen.
And Kellen.
All right, so that looks good. So we can execute that.
Okay, execute.
And then we can go back to our flight plan page.
Back to our flight plan page, yep.
And put in the rest of our route. So we can go to the next page.
Okay.
All right, so next we can just put in the rest of our fixes. So after Kellen, we're going direct to by Jack.
Yeah.
We can type that in and put it right underneath Kellen there on the right-hand side.
Okay.
And then I see we're taking the Quebec 60 route to Jackson, so we can type in Q60 and put that in on the left-hand side.
Okay.
And put in Jackson on the right-hand side.
Yes.
All right, then we're going direct to Dorn.
Yeah.
So we can put that under Jackson.
Yeah, and that'll default to direct, sure.
All right. And then it looks like Dorn is the transition for the Cavalier 4 arrival into Dulles.
Yes.
So what we can do before executing that is go to the departure arrival page again.
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess we can execute that then.
Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't expecting to see that.
No, me neither.
And then once that's there, then we can go to the left back to the departure arrival index.
Yep.
To the Dulles arrivals.
Yep.
And then the Kevlar 4.
Kevlar 4.
And the Dorn transition.
Yep.
And then we've got a runway, I believe it was ILS to 1 right is what
yes.
we'll do.
Okay.
And then what we can do from there is go to our... Actually, do they have a transition from the arrival into that? I don't have that up in front of me. It does not look like they do. Okay, so it's going to be vectors anyway, so
okay.
That looks good.
Okay.
So what we'll do before executing that is we'll just go back to our legs page and verify that that is looking correctly.
Okay.
We'll hit next to cycle through to where that is. We got Dorn, and then next again. Okay, so what we can do is we can put Dorn on top of Dorn.
Okay.
We can select this Dorn into this scratch pad.
Yeah.
Go back to the previous page and put that on top of that Dorn. So that way it'll connect the arrival there, and we can execute that.
Okay.
Very good. And then we can just go to cycle next page again until we get to the approach, because there should be a discontinuity there since we're getting vectors. Or at least it'll show vectors there on the left.
Yeah, that's right.
What we want.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so that looks like that completes the route section.
Great.
So next up, what we'll do is we'll go down to our MFD menu button, which is the button right there. There we go. And we'll just verify that these are the correct settings that we want. So normally the airport's speed and altitude are selected. That's what we normally fly with.
Okay.
Depending on whose leg it is, if it's the captain's leg to fly or if it's the first officer's leg to fly, the pilot flying will have the VNAV in the window section. So since we're in the left seat, we'll go ahead and select the window to the VNAV option.
Okay.
And that'll punch in our descent planning into that box right up there for us so we can see it there.
Sure. Okay.
All right. And then we'll go to the right-hand side there instead of the left-hand side, line select key.
Here.
And we're going to... Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to turn the pilot monitoring we usually have, instead of off, it's going to be on. And that will give us our expected landing fuel and stuff on the right-hand side.
Okay. Didn't know that. Interesting.
All right. And then we'll hit next page here, just verify that our range to the altitude select is green, so that looks good.
Yeah.
All right. So once we've done that, we can enter our performance data in.
Right.
So we can go to the perf page, which is just above the MFD advanced there.
Yes.
All right. So the advisory VNAV is enabled. That's good.
Yeah.
What we'll do next is we'll go up to the top right, the fuel management side.
Yeah.
Performance mode is predicted. That's good. So then we can go all the way down to back to the perf menu on the bottom.
Yes.
And then we can go to perf init in the top left.
Perf init.
And this is where we can enter all of our data for the flight.
Cool. So before we fill in this page, I probably ought to put some passengers and stuff in the plane, shouldn't I, with the EFB. So to do that, we're going to go to Performance, and I just normally change to 0 fuel weight, and I'll get the 0 fuel weight from the flight plan, and it's going to be 26,400 kilograms. I know we're in America and we shouldn't be using kilograms, but it's what I'm used to, so that's what I'm going to use.
Okay.
Press enter, and then fuel, we're going to be taking 4.3 metric tons, or 4265 kilograms. Enter. So we'll set the payload in the simulator. And this is also where we can, if you want, copy the performance init data to the FMS. Do you want to do it that way, or do you want to put it in manually? I'm easy.
Yep. Yeah, let's try it.
Okay.
Let's copy a data straight in.
Okay, that should have done it. Let's have a look. And it has.
Beautiful. All right. So I guess the next step to do is fill in the rest of the boxes that need to be filled in. So our cruising altitude we can toss into that box in the top right.
Okay, so that's flight level 390.
So we can execute that.
Execute that. Yep.
And we'll go to the next page.
Next page.
All right. So we can enter our ISO deviation and our average winds.
Okay.
So from the base, I see our average, our ISO there is -1. So we can put in the minus key and then 1 into our left section there.
Okay.
Some people get confused. The ISO deviation needs to have the numeric minus sign, and then the average winds actually needs to have a P for a tailwind and an M for a headwind on the right-hand side.
Okay, cool. So we're using the few clouds preset today to make this replicable. You can normally get your wind component from your SimBrief flight plan, but I think we agreed that we're going to assume a tailwind of 3 knots, didn't we? Something like that?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So just a P and then 3, is it?
That's it.
Okay. Right, done.
All right, so we can execute that.
Okay.
And normally the top wind is obviously for the climb, the bottom wind's for the descent. So if you had those numbers, you could punch them in. If not, you could just put the average cruise wind right in the middle there. So
okay.
That's good. All right, so we can hit next page, go to our third perfinite page there.
Yep.
Here's where we'll put in our reserve fuel and our taxi fuel.
Right. So reserves should be 612 kilograms. And taxi fuel should be 227. There we go.
All right, that looks good. Now the next thing we'll do is we'll go to our VNAV button, just below the hold button.
Okay.
And we'll verify that these speeds are correct. It depends what speeds you want to fly, but normally what I do is I climb at 290 knots, transitioning to Mach 7.4, which I see is already in there.
Yep.
We can hit the next page to go to the cruise section.
Yep.
307.4. Let's bump that cruise speed up to Mach 0.77.
Okay.
That's a pretty standard Mach number for us.
So do I do the slash and then 0.77?
Yes, that should work.
Okay. Yeah, that's done.
And we can execute that.
Okay.
And then next page, one more time to the descent. And what we can do is we can change that target speed to Mach 0.77/320.
Okay. It's exciting. I've never actually changed these figures at all.
Oh yeah. It's mainly used for, it's in the it calculates the times differently as well as the fuel burn.
Right. Cool.
All right, so we can execute that.
Yep.
All right. So that is just about it for the box, I believe. Next up, what we would normally do is, especially if all the passengers and bags were on board, we would calculate our performance data through ACARS, and then we could plug in our V speeds and all that good stuff.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I think we can assume that everyone's on board. Obviously, we don't have ACARS.
Yeah, so I think we can use the tablet there to the left.
Yes. We can, and it's just a question of looking at these speeds and pressing set all. How prototypical are these? I mean, in my experience, they don't change a huge amount from flight to flight.
They're pretty standard.
Okay.
I mean, most flights will have about the same amount of passengers and cargo.
Yeah.
Where things change is if you're flying an empty plane, like reposition it to another airport. That's when the speeds are obviously lower. Or like you have a full passengers and a lot more cargo, then it changes as well. But usually they're around the same numbers.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. So we'll press settle.
That's a great feature, so we don't have to spin the knobs a bunch all the time.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Cool. All right.
And there they are. And one thing I've just noticed is that we're set to hectopascals, and we're in America, so we shouldn't be. So I will push the HPA/inches button to switch us to inches of mercury. Right, what's next?
Sure. So now that we have that, we can also we'll also need to set our stab trim for our takeoff data.
Oh yes.
As well, so we can verify I don't think that sets automatically with that, so we'll have to remember to do that.
No, it doesn't. So we're looking for 6.5 for the takeoff trim. So we'll do that now. And for those of you who are unaware, the keyboard shortcut for the nose down trim is number pad 7, and for nose up is number pad 1. Okay, there we are, 6.5 set. And one thing I've just noticed is that we're in hectopascals, which of course we shouldn't be in the States. So we can change that over quickly down here. There we go.
Cool. So now that we've had our speeds in there, the next thing I like to do is just verify that the PFD is all set up in what we want. So that's basically going to be making sure that the autopilot or flight director is pointed to the correct side. So that little white arrow is pointing to the left, and that is appropriate for the captain flying. If the first officer was flying, we'd want that pointing to the right-hand side. And basically what that's doing is it's verifying that the pilot flying's nav source is what is controlling the flight director.
Okay,
So,
where is this little white arrow? Sorry, I can't see it.
yeah, so on the artificial horizon there in the top left, you'll see a little white arrow just to the left of the bank indication.
Ah, yes, I see it. I see it.
That arrow is pointing to this side. If the first officer was flying, there's a button on the flight control panel that would actually switch that to the other side.
Right, okay.
So.
Cool.
So that looks good since we're the captain in this scenario, obviously.
Yeah.
We'll verify that our altitude pre-select is the correct altitude for the first limitation we have in our clearance.
Right.
So I don't know. Are we just assuming we're cleared the whole way, or are we using air traffic control?
I think we'll assume we're cleared the whole way for simplicity's sake. Yeah.
That sounds good. Looks like the departure, the SID we have here is a top altitude of 10,000, so that seems like a good altitude to start at.
Yes, okay.
Next up, we'll verify that the heading bug is centered to the planned runway that we're going to use.
Right.
So for 26 left, looking at my chart here, it looks like it's going to be a heading of 275.
275, okay. Let's go round the other way. 275, there we are.
All right, very good. And I think that just about does it to set all that stuff up, and then we can start running some more checklists.
Great.
All right, so we can look back over at the tablet, and we can run our before start checklist.
Okay, so back to checklists. Before start, passenger signs are on because we did that, I remember. Landing elevation. Now, this is an interesting one because this is the second take we've done of this. You were saying that in your airline, you set the landing elevation to the arrival airport. Is that right?
That is correct, yep.
Whereas in our experience in the sim, that tends to lead to quite a nasty depressurization for no apparent reason. So what we're going to do now is set the elevation to our departure airport, which is going to be 990 feet. So I'll do that now. And what I'm going to do, unfortunately you won't be able to see this in the sim, in the video, is I'm going to switch back to the status page. And you can see our landing elevation here. I'm now going to pop out this panel with right alt and click, and it's not going to show up on the video. I wish it would, but you're going to have to trust that I'm looking at it while I twiddle this knob to 990 or thereabouts. Probably call it 1,000. So that is now set, and you can see it set over here as well. So that's our landing elevation done as Aerosoft requires it to be done. Next then, altimeters. We have set those, haven't we? 29 and 902. So. Yeah, so as I said earlier, we're using the few clouds preset so that you can replicate this trip if you want to. So it's going to be 29 and 902 throughout. FMS checked and set. IRS aligned and nav. Radios and nav aids. Do we need to do anything with those?
We'll just verify that both nav radios are set to auto, which I think they already are.
Okay.
Our primary means of navigation is the GPS for this.
Yep.
So they're in auto tune. Yep, with that, so you can see that blue AUT there.
Oh yes,
So
yeah.
if that's in there, that's good to go.
Okay, cool. Takeoff briefing. Well, we're not going to bother with that, are we? We're going to go down the runway really fast and point the nose in the sky and hope for the best.
Sounds good.
Good. So that's the before start checklist complete.
Awesome.
Okay, so the before start checklist is all done. What do we need to do now before we get going?
All right, so I guess we can close all the doors, remove the chocks, pull the jet bridge back, basically get rid of all the ground service equipment.
Okay.
And we'll button up and get ready to go.
Okay, so the door's already shut, the wheel chocks have now been removed, and I'm going to try and use Pushback Express to get rid of the jetway. I have had some odd behaviour in the CRJ with jetways. Sometimes they go, sometimes they don't. This time it's going. Marvellous. Okay, so jetway's gone.
All right, great. So if all the ground service equipment's out of the way, we can just do a quick check. We'll turn on the fuel boost pumps, the left and right boost pump on the overhead panel.
Yep.
We'll turn that hydraulic 3A pump on.
Okay.
We can turn our beacon light on.
Okay.
And then we can we'll verify that the nose wheel steering is set to the off position for our push.
It is.
And we should be good to go. So now we can run our, I believe it's our cleared to start checklist.
I think it is, yeah. So back to checklist, cleared to start. Here we are. Devices off. I mean, I'll say off, it's not really. APU is on. We know this because we've been using the power from it. Electrics. Have we checked everything we need to there?
I think so.
Okay. Takeoff data we've set. Doors are closed and locked. Beacon is on. Fuel pumps are on, and the quantity is whatever I said it was earlier. Hydraulic pumps auto and on. Parking brake is currently on, and will be, I suppose, until we actually push back.
That is correct. Sounds good.
So pushback time, is it?
That is time.
So again, I'm using Pushback Express for the pushback, and you can use whatever you like.
Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead, flight tech.
We are ready for pushback and engine start.
Roger. Release the parking brakes, please.
Brakes are
Brakes
released.
Pushing back.
I use the keyboard shortcut of Control and then number pad decimal to release the brakes there. And I'll do my usual fantastic job of driving a pushback tug now.
You are clear behind, and you can start your engines at your discretion.
So we could start engines during the pushback, but I guess it's better for the sake of this tutorial to focus on one thing at a time, right?
Sure, yeah, we can start the engines after we complete the pushback.
Yeah. And I won't waste all of your time by getting it absolutely spot on. That'll do us. So we'll end the pushback there.
Pushback complete. Set parking brakes, please.
Parking brake set.
Roger. Okay, the tow bar is disconnected and the equipment is clear. We will see you on the right-hand side with the pin.
Thanks, and you can disconnect and go to hand signals.
Thanks. Have a good flight. See you later.
Okay, so that is us pushed back sort of somewhere near the taxiway centerline. What now?
Yeah, so we can start our engines. So the cool thing is all the switch positions should be in the correct positions already to start the engines from our previous checklist.
Right.
So all we really need to do is press the start switch on the right engine. We typically start the right engine first.
Okay, right engine first. Okay, right engine start.
And then we can monitor our gauges.
Yep.
We'll see on the right-hand side the R eng start white status message just below the green messages.
Yep.
And then we'll see our N2 and our N1 numbers rising.
Yep.
Now, once the N2 gets above 20 and the ITT is still below 120, we can introduce fuel into the engine.
Okay.
So we'll just pull that little red lever on the bottom up and slide the thrust lever into the idle detent.
Okay. And sounds like it's starting nicely.
Looks like it. can see the oil pressure and temperature rising, which is good. The N2 and N1 are still rising again.
Yeah.
The starter should cut out about 50% N2 there.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a delay on the message sometimes, but
Oh, yeah, there it goes.
and then once that, typically the ITT rises a little bit higher and then it settles back down to a lower number, but it looks like it's settled down there at 505. So that looks like the right engine start is complete, so we can just do the same thing for the left engine.
Okay, so the ITT is the main figure you're looking at when deciding if it's been a successful start.
Typically, yes. In the real airplane, the top part where it has the red line there will be a little bit lower, and then once it's completed the start process, the red line will jump up to that higher number, and then the ITT will do what we call just roll back to where it currently is sitting at right at 505 now.
Okay.
So it looks like it just kind of hovers around there, so we just have to give it a second, just make sure it's stabilized there.
Yeah.
And that should do.
Interesting, thank you. Okay, so same again with the left engine. %.
There's 20, yep.
Now, I've often noticed this outboard ground spoilers warning up until the engines are started. Do you have any idea what that's about?
Yeah, so let's make it a short story. It's basically just the hydraulics. Once the engines are started, it switches on different hydraulic pumps, and it activates the different systems that are controlled by the hydraulic pumps.
I see. I see.
Yeah. So once all the engines are up, those messages should go away, and it looks like they did.
Yeah. Yeah. And another mystery solved. Thank you. So yeah, what now?
All right. So yeah. So the engines are both started. So typically now the captain and first officer would do their flow just to make sure everything's good there. So since I'm an FO, what I would do next is I'd turn on the probes.
Okay.
The anti-ice probes on the bottom right of the overhead panel there.
Yep.
All right, and then I'd set the flaps for whatever flap setting we're using for takeoff.
Which I think is 8.
I think it is 8, yeah. All right. And then assuming now that it's been a while since we finished the pushback, the tug will have disconnected so we can arm the nose wheel steering.
Yeah, he has. Nose wheel steering armed.
All right, and then what we'll do is we'll just go to the, we basically, in the real airplane, we just run through all the synoptic pages, make sure all the indications are in the green. But
Right.
the main thing we want to check out is on the flight control synoptic page, we'll verify that our ailerons and rudder and our elevator are all working appropriately.
Okay, so there's the flight control synoptic page.
Yep. So we'll just go full deflection to the left and to the right on the yoke.
Right.
Verify that all those arrows are going to the full.
Yeah.
And then we'll pull back all the way and push forward all the way.
Yeah.
All right. Then we'll just run the rudder back and forth.
Looks good.
And good. Yep. So we can go back to the status page now.
Back to the
Instead of the
status
flight control.
page.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we should be good to run the next checklist.
Okay. After start, generators are auto. We could have a quick look up here to make sure they are, but we know they are. The electrics, we don't need to check anything there really, do we?
That was just one of the things that we checked just to make sure everything's green. So we could run that if
Yeah.
you want. It's just going to make sure that, and I'm assuming in the sim everything is working appropriately.
Yeah. Well, let's have a quick look at it in case, just in case. So AC electrical. Basically, we're checking that everything's green. Is that the gist of it?
Right. So we've got both the IDGs and the generators. We're just making sure those green, the green circles and the green box there's no like white lines or anything.
Okay.
Both the generators are powering their respective buses appropriately. So.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
And would you also check the DC?
Correct.
Or-
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it looks-
And then the same thing. Typically everything green is a good sign.
yeah, yeah, okay. I think that's the key point to take away, isn't it?
Right.
Okay, so back to the status page. Packs are on. APU. Would we turn that off at this point?
Typically, yeah, we turn the APU off for the taxi once the engines are both started.
Okay.
So we can just hit the start-stop, which is the one with the green light.
Yep.
And then next we'll hit the power fuel button.
Okay, and you can do that one after the other. No need to wait for anything to spool down or...
Correct.
Okay. Anti-ice. We probably don't need today, even in Microsoft Flight Simulator, do we?
Yep. Right.
Nose wheel steering, we have armed. Great, that's the after start checklist complete.
Very good. And I suppose we can roll right into the taxi checklist.
Yeah. Slats and flaps, flaps 8 set, flight controls have been checked. Trims, we checked earlier, we set the stabilizer trim. Thrust reversers are armed. Flight instruments have been checked, and the brake temperature, I guess we'd see some red somewhere if there was a problem with that, would we?
Yeah, either white or red.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all in the green and 0, so that
Yeah.
looks good.
Okay. So that's the taxi checklist complete.
Beautiful.
So is it finally time to do some moving?
I think it's finally time to get on the roll.
Good. So I guess we'd want to turn the taxi light on at this point, would we?
Sounds good, yep.
Okay. And now we just need to find the runway. So I'll release the parking brakes. Basically up and right, isn't it, if I remember rightly?
Say that again?
It's basically straight up and then turn right, isn't it? I think that's where we're going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. The first taxiway is Foxtrot, so we should be able to skip that and go straight on to Echo.
Okay.
And we'll take all the way down to the right.
Okay. And what sort of speed are we aiming to taxi at?
Oh, about 10 knots maybe.
About 10 knots.
It depends. Yeah, it depends how fast the rest of the traffic's moving, just kind of like you're driving a car.
Yeah.
In Atlanta, things move pretty fast, and so you may be pressured to taxi a little faster.
Okay.
But usually about 10 knots is a good safe speed.
Okay, cool. And would you normally start the before takeoff checklist as you're taxiing, or would you wait till you get to the holding point, or how does it work for you lot?
Yeah, so normally the captain's the one that does the taxiing because the tiller that controls the nose wheel steering is only on the left-hand side.
Right.
And so the first officer is typically the pilot monitoring, doing the radios and running the checklists
Right.
anyway. And so typically the before takeoff check would be done by the first officer while the captain's taxiing out as you're approaching the departure runway.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
But I guess again, for the sake of keeping this clear, we'll just get all the way there and do it as we hold short.
Sounds good.
So here we are, we're holding on Echo, just short of 26 left. So I guess it's time to go through the before takeoff checklist.
Yep, we can do that now.
So we're going to assume we've been cleared for takeoff, I guess, for this, are we?
Yeah, let's assume that.
Okay. So lights and strobes. Strobes I can do. They are here. And what else do we need to do in the way of lights?
Probably just all 3 of those landing lights there should do it.
Okay. And do we leave the taxi lights on?
Yeah, we can leave those on.
Okay. I've seen that done in this plane, but I've never seen it done in any other, so I wasn't absolutely sure. Fuel cross flow.
All right, so yeah, we'll make sure that cross flow is set to manual.
This one here?
Yep.
Okay. And what's the reason for that?
Yeah, so setting that to manual just ensures that it's not going to do an auto cross flow, and so when we're taking off at high pitch attitudes and banking typically right after takeoff, we don't want the computer to get confused if the fuel tanks are imbalanced. So we're just setting it to manual just so it can stabilize once we get into a climb. And then we can allow it to resume auto cross flowing as necessary.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Transponder and TCAS. We haven't done anything with the transponder yet, have we? I guess you would normally set that when you're getting your clearance at the gate, would you?
Yeah, typically in the U.S., we'll have that transponder on as part of the before push check, like before we push back. I've noted, I guess in other countries it's not as important, but typically in the U.S. we'll have that transponder on before we push.
Right, okay. So I suppose, although we don't have ATC, we should have a look at how you do that. So the transponder code is in here, and if we wanted to change that...
if we wanted to change that, yeah, we just hit that soft key to the left of that.
Yeah.
And then we can use the knob to change the numbers in there. Okay,
fine. That's easy enough. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. How do we then change it from standby to on or out or whatever it is in this plane?
Right, so it's white right now, which means it's in standby. So to get it to be active and turned on, right above the stab trim buttons, there's the knob for it.
Oh, yes.
And right now it's in the middle at standby. So since the captain's flying, we'll turn that to the left to the number 1.
Okay.
And then that should turn that squawk code to the green color, and that means we're good to go.
Ah, nice. Okay, thank you. Radar and terrain display. Well, these aren't yet modeled in this this sim, are they? CAS, which is
crew alert system. Yep, we'll just verify that any messages up there are messages we're expecting. No surprises. So we got the manual crossflow, which is what we set. That's good.
Yep.
Seatbelt sign is on and the no smoking, so that matches up. Our thrust reversers are armed, and we'll obviously have the parking brake off, but all those messages look good.
Okay. So, line up.
I guess we can do that.
Okay. Right, here we are.
All right. So now what we can do is if we're typically we'll wait until we're cleared for takeoff by the tower, but we can hit our toga buttons to bring up our flight director.
Okay. Toga button. There it is.
All right. So that goes into takeoff mode, which is what we want.
Yep.
We'll verify that our current heading matches the runway heading, which is what we're expecting. So about 275, I guess we set it to.
Yes.
And so that's good. Just partly just to verify that we're on the correct runway.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I guess we're good to advance the throttles whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay, so advance the throttles or thrust levers? What do we call them?
Thrust levers.
Thrust levers. Okay. Advance the thrust levers to about 50% of N1 till the engines are stable, which they are now, and then all the way forward to the toga detent.
Looks good. Yeah, we can verify that by that green toga right above the PFD. That'll let us know that we're in the correct detent.
Yeah.
Passing 80 knots, we'll just verify that our speed is live there and it matches with the first officer side.
Yeah. Here's V1.
And V1 and rotate. All right. As soon as we see a positive rate, we'll call for the gear up.
Okay. Gear's going up.
We'll set speed mode and nav mode on the FCP.
Speed mode and nav mode. Yep.
All right. And then at about 1,000 feet above the ground, we can start speeding up to about 250 knots.
Okay. So twiddle the knob to about 250. Okay. So it's commanding a pitch down to speed up.
All right. And then we can turn the autopilot on to make it easier for you if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, the autopilot's on.
All right.
And we've passed the T rather. So should we be retracting flaps? Probably should, shouldn't we?
Yes. Yeah, we can have the flaps up.
Okay.
And it looks like it missed the missed the turn there for some reason. So if we go into heading mode,
Yeah.
we can turn that heading around to maybe like 330.
330, okay.
And then on that heading, if we hit nav mode, it should arm the nav mode.
Okay.
And then when it crosses, it should intercept for us.
Okay. Ah, yes, and we've got
There we
FMS1 flashing, which I guess means it is.
Perfect.
At what point should we reduce the thrust levers to climb? I always forget to do that every time.
Yes, it happens really fast in the sim as well as the airplane.
Yeah.
So after the flaps are up, we can do our after takeoff check, and
Okay.
reducing thrust levers to the climb is part of that check.
Okay, I'll do it now. And now we can do our after takeoff or our climb check. So fuel cross flow we'll set back to auto. Bleeds and APU, they're fine. Thrust reversers, we've got to put them off. I can never find them. There we are. There they are.
There you go.
And CAS. Seatbelts
Alright,
and
that
no
looks good.
smoking. Yeah.
Looks like our altitude captured there at 10,000 feet, which is fine because we'll probably want to accelerate to about 290 for our climb anyway. But
Okay.
I guess we can bug our cruising altitude in our using our knob there,
Yep.
and then we can resume the climb.
Okay. By pressing the speed button again.
Correct. Yep. And then pressing the speed button will basically set you into climb mode if the altitude selected is above the altitude that you're currently at.
Okay.
Or wait, it looks like it didn't for some reason, but it should. Maybe just hit that speed button one more time.
There. Yeah, it took 3 presses and a long one, I think.
There we go.
And now we're overspeeding.
All right. So we can just dial that that speed bug back down to 290 for our climb.
Okay. There it is.
All right, and then what we can do is we can center, even though we're in nav mode, we can center that heading bug on our new course that we're about to fly.
Okay.
Partly so it looks nicer, partly if the nav mode starts going wonky, we can go into a heading mode pretty easily and it won't start turning on us.
Sure. And this is something that I fail to do every single time, and I don't know why I can't get into the habit of it.
Right. Very good. And we're on our way.
Yeah. Not too bad. I think we should show the nice people the view outside, because it's a shame being cooped up in here.
I agree.
I'm getting a lot of stutters today. I'm not sure why.
Interesting.
Anyway, it's great.
Did they have like a world update or something before, or since we've flown into Atlanta, or like since the last time we recorded?
There has been something. Yeah, there has been something. Not a world update, but a couple of patches, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that has been since I last flew the CRJ, actually.
I've heard Atlanta's pretty rough on the frames, usually anyway.
Yeah, yeah, I've
Hopefully
seen
we'll
other
get better
people struggle.
tell it.
Yes. So I guess we're approaching transition altitude. Nothing's going to change because we're still going to be on 29902, but I may as well go through the motions.
Sure.
There we are. I wasn't sure I was pressing the right button there, but I was.
We can press it and find out what happens.
Yes. And that's the beauty of a sim.
Yep.
But it's not why people watch a tutorial.
True.
So is there anything we should be thinking about during the climb other than keeping that heading bug synced?
trying to think. Typically around now, we'd be considering turning the seatbelt sign off if the air was smooth.
Okay.
If we weren't sure, we sometimes wait until we get to the cruising altitude because sometimes it can be smooth in the climb, but it can be bumpy up there.
Yeah.
So typically we'll ask air traffic control for a ride report to see if there's any smooth air up there, and if it is, yeah, we can turn the seatbelt sign off.
Okay, let's do that. Seatbelts. There we are.
And along with that, typically we just make a PA for the passengers, letting them know, we're climbing up to our cruising altitude. We've got, 50 minutes or however long it is left in the flight.
Yes.
Sit back, relax, enjoy the rest of your flight or something like that.
Yeah. Nice.
Sometimes, I guess depending on how long the flight is or how sketchy the weather at our destination is, we can start looking at the destination weather. If it was low IFR and we were concerned about getting in due to the minimums, we would be monitoring the weather, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But other than that, just looking out the window and enjoying the view.
Nice. That's my kind of life, I think.
It's a pretty good job.
Yeah. So I'm really interested. You mentioned at the beginning that you obviously were into flight simming from quite a young age, and that's what made you want to be a pilot. What is the draw of flight simulation to you right now? Why do you still love it in spite of doing it for a living?
I have a great answer for you.
Oh dear, go on.
It's the freedom.
Yeah.
I love flying for the airlines. I like the point to point. I like having a mission, I like seeing the passengers as they get on. I like knowing that I'm responsible to, get them safely to their destination. I like having the constraint, okay, this is the mission, we got to get it done type of thing. But on the other side of the coin, it's kind of nice to, pop up anywhere in the world, fly any type of plane you want, set the weather to anything you want, time of day to anything you want. You can fly over your house. You can you can fly in airspace that you wouldn't normally be allowed to fly in real life and kind of explore the world. So
yeah,
I think that's the main draw for me.
Yeah. So basically you could do all the things that you don't get out of flying a real plane, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah. And one of the other things is the external view while you're flying, because obviously you're only going to be inside the plane in real life. Yeah.
One day they'll invent a drone that can actually follow an aircraft, and you can have a play with from the cockpit.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so once we get, it's kind of hard to see from my view, but once we get up to about this altitude, we can consider switching our speed bug to Mach 7.4 for the climb.
Okay.
But I guess we're already at Mach 8.0, so we can just set that to 7.7.
Okay, 7.7, right.
Is that our cruise speed?
Yep. There we are, Mach 7.7.
Very good.
So in the real plane, does this switch over automatically?
No, so at least the bug doesn't.
Right.
So we'd have to switch that over by hand.
Okay.
So
I'm not quite sure why it does that in the sim, especially if it can't do it accurately or at the right time. It's an odd little feature.
Well, let me rephrase that. Let me think about that. Actually, no, now that I think about it, I think it does do it automatically, and we have to switch it back sometimes.
Okay.
I think it does do it automatically. It's just typically at not the time that I'm wanting it to switch. And so I manually switch it back to the speed, indicated airspeed, for example, until I'm ready to switch it to the Mach number, and then I switch it back. So I guess that's why I thought it didn't do it automatically, but I guess it does do it automatically. It's just not at the time I want it to.
Oh, okay. So it is a bit like the sim then, in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the same thing happens in the CJ4. I don't know if you've flown that at all.
No,
but
not
yeah,
yet.
it switches automatically, and but at the wrong time. Oh, you must. You must. With the working title mod, it's brilliant. And it's, you know, you can take it wherever you like, really. It's got such a short takeoff and landing run.
Awesome.
So how realistic is this climb rate? We're doing about 400 feet per minute at the moment.
That's fairly typical. You'll notice it sometimes starts to porpoise around a little bit.
Yeah.
Usually during the climb, we'd be climbing at 7.4. So if you want, you could bump down that Mach number down to 7.4. The reason we had it at 7.7 was just because we were already a little fast when I remembered to switch that over.
Yeah.
So that should climb rate a little bit out.
It'd be interesting to compare, I guess.
Yeah. Once you start getting up above 350 and 360, it starts to lag a little bit, the real airplane, especially if you're pretty heavy. It's the 700's an absolute rocket ship, you know, below flight level 200 and 250. Once you start up there, it does start slowing down a bit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so once the speed's settled, it doesn't. Yeah, it's not made a huge amount of difference actually to the climb rate.
Yeah. We're still in our climb detent, right?
Yes. Yeah, we are.
All right. And typically, we're usually not all. Typically, we're not up at flight level 390 anyway. It depends, you know, what the winds are, how long the flight is and stuff, but anywhere from 300 to, you know, 370 sometimes.
Okay.
The dispatch will plan the flight, and they'll be able to see on the ground with their computers how good our climb rate might be up at altitude. And if it's just really low, then they might give us a lower cruising altitude if we're really heavy.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that was sort of monitored by them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real nice. The dispatch gives us, on our release, it gives us all of our information. They're tracking our flight, you know, from start to finish.
Yeah.
And then we can talk to them via ACARs if we need performance numbers or anything. They'll run it for us.
Right.
So it's kind of convenient to have.
I'm wondering why SimBrief did give us flight level 390. It's higher than it's ever given me before for a CRJ flight. And I suppose SimBrief knows about the real world weather, and we're not flying in the real world weather, so technically we could have chosen anything.
Yeah. Typically this route would have since it's kind of northeasterly, it would have a pretty good tailwind, so maybe that's why it picked it. It might have been the most efficient.
Yeah, maybe. Well, we're getting there.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it just dogs out, it might be worth trying a different altitude, but it's a long enough flight, we could wait to get up there if you want.
I have no strong opinion, really.
It'll get up there eventually. It just might take a while.
Yeah, let's let it get up there.
Sure.
As long as we've got a bit of time to actually cruise and not instantly go into the descent, which I think, yeah, we will, won't we?
Yeah, should have enough time. I don't think the real airplane is this slow once it gets to this altitude.
No.
It might slow down to like 500 feet per minute, but it still chug up pretty good.
Oh, it's painful to watch, isn't it?
100 feet per minute.
Yeah. Come on, you can do it. 300 feet. Oh, maybe you can't. It's just gone to 0.
Well, and the problem is once we get up there too, it might have trouble speeding up.
Yeah. So we've made it, I was about to say, to flight level 390. The aircraft really struggled. And I've just noticed I've actually got flight level 393 in the altitude field, which is my bad. I'll dial that back down. Oh no, let's just leave it. Let's just pretend we wanted flight level 393. So you can actually see us reaching our cruising altitude now, which will be very nice for you. So, yeah, what happens when we get there, Michael?
Typically, when we reach our cruising altitude, we'll check our fuel quantity just to make sure that our fuel is in line with what we had on our release from dispatch. The takeoff and climb portion of the flight is obviously where we're going to be burning the most fuel.
Yeah.
And so once we get to cruise, that's a good point to check our fuel and make sure we're in line. If it's a lot less than what we were expecting, then we've got some work to do.
Yeah.
But typically it's right about on. So
Okay.
yeah. The other thing is we'll want to monitor that speed, just to make sure that we're near our appropriate cruise speed. It looks like we're sliding just a little bit.
Yes.
So.
Yes, it is going down, and we're still in the climb detent, which isn't great, is it?
No. If we went down to 370, that might help it out a little bit.
All right, let's do that then.
Give us some momentum on the way down.
Yeah. Right, have I actually set 370? Yes, I have. And how are we going to get down, VS or?
Yeah, vertical speed works.
Okay. It's another one of those buttons that doesn't like being pressed sometimes. So what sort of vertical speed should we be using?
Let's do 1,500 feet per minute.
Okay.
That seems pretty standard. The greater the descent rate, the easier it is on the fuel burn because we can pull our thrust levers back even further.
Right.
It allows us to stay at cruising altitude longer, but for our purposes, that should give us a prolonged descent to allow our speed to increase here.
Okay, that makes sense. And the speed should be set at Mach 0.77 now, should it?
Yeah, it's at 0.77 there.
I don't know if we'd already done that. I often accidentally twiddle knobs while I'm trying to zoom in and out, or vice versa. So, yes, anyway, it's set right now.
All right.
Okay, so we're actually passing that. I guess this is the point when I want to start adjusting the throttles, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just bring them back a bit. Bit more.
All right, then once that altitude captures like it is right now, we'll need to add a little bit more back in, but yeah.
Okay.
That should do it.
I've set 37,100. There we are, that's actually 37. I'm sure I checked it. I must have accidentally twiddled it.
The sim might be giving you grief.
Yeah. And it's captured the altitude, so we're going to have to go back into VS, aren't we, to lose that?
Yeah.
And I'll add a bit more thrust back in.
Speed's getting a little slow there.
It is, and something's weird is going on with these thrust levers. I just pushed them forward, but the N1 went down.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah, I'll probably want to go max thrust right now just to get it back up, because if it goes too low, then it's get behind the power curve.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something I've experienced, and I think a lot of people have experienced, where they do get the power wrong, and it all just ends very badly.
Right. It's hard to get that speed back up once it starts decreasing.
Yeah.
Especially up at the high cruise altitudes.
Yeah. Yeah, that thing with the thrust levers not correctly adjusting the power is a new one on me. I haven't had that before. It could be
Interesting.
an issue with one of my throttle quadrant settings, because I'm fairly new to this throttle quadrant. I don't know. Anyway, speed's going up. I suppose that's the main thing for now.
Yep.
You may have noticed that I have increased the range on the navigation display. I did that during a section which I'm pretty sure I'm going to cut out, so I'll just show you how I did that. It's just a question of twiddling this outer knob here. Sorry, the inner knob here. This is definitely the hardest plane I've flown in a flight sim, I think. Maybe with the exception of Concorde. And
Yeah, there's a lot of extra work to it, especially without those auto throttles.
yes. Okay, so we've got Mach 0.77. Let's try bringing the throttles back, see if they behave.
Yeah, somewhere in that 82 to 85% N1 is usually a good target zone in the real airplane.
Right. So I'm definitely moving them together, but the N1 is dropping a lot more on the right engine. Very odd. Anyway, that's 87, and we're a little slow, aren't we? It's building up again now.
Yeah, use as much as you need, I guess.
Right, let's try bringing them back a little bit. Yeah, they're not synchronized. It's really odd.
Yeah, that N2 is doing some weird stuff, like you said. Or sorry, the N1 on the right engine.
Yeah. I guess this is what you get for not trying your throttle quadrant out on the plane before trying to film a lesson in it. Bring it back a little more. Anyway, I've definitely got the same settings for both thrust levers. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe they're just quite sensitive, and I am moving them at slightly different speeds. Anyway, that seems pretty good.
Yeah, looks like we're pretty stabilized here.
Yeah.
Cool, so we can just take a quick look at that direct intercept page on the FMS.
Okay.
Just to make sure we're not getting too close to our descent in there. Can we zoom in just a little bit on there?
Of course.
All right, thanks.
So it's still expecting us at flight level 390.
Ah. So what we can do to change that is if we go into either, let's just do VNav button. And we can change our next page, change our cruising altitude in there.
Okay.
To 370. If that helps us out a little bit.
That's better. Yep.
There we go. 248. So now here's the interesting thing. In the real airplane, what I like to do is use this direct intercept page on the FMS to plan the descents.
Yes.
On an RNAV arrival like the one that we're doing right now.
Yes.
In the real airplane, if there is a between Altitude restriction. So, for example, if there was a fix that said between 12,000 and flight level 180,
Yes.
if you were above flight level 180, that descent rate required would be to match 180 by that fix, since that's the next restriction down.
Yeah.
If we're below flight level 180, it would show the bottom altitude, so 12,000, to meet that restriction.
Okay.
In the sim, it doesn't appear to work the same way, but we can see how it works, because right now it's showing Dorn at flight level, what is that,
248.
248. Let's hit the next page, because I think the first official restriction is at Perkin.
Yes.
Okay, that should be above flight level 220.
It should.
And so it looks like the FMS is trying to calculate like the optimal route through the fixes, which is nice.
Yes.
It's kind of like a pseudo VNav, it would appear. That's not how, at least the RJs that I fly actually operate.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting. So
that is interesting. So what would you have then at Perkin? Would it say 220 or above, or would it? Yeah. What would it have?
Yeah. So so we can see Perkin there, where it says flight level 223. It would say flight level 220A. So above flight level 220.
Right.
And then the descent rate required would be to cross Perkin at 220.
Okay. That is very different then.
Yeah, and it looks like here it's wanting you to cross 300 feet high, which kind of makes sense. So you can have like a continuous descent.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we could try the descent planning via how the boxes or the FMS is telling us, but I guess it's a little bit different than what it is in real life and what I'm used to.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
That is interesting. Now let's keep going. So Cood, it's giving us 17,500. And the restriction is above 14,000 and below flight level 220. So would you get sort of 220B and then 140A in the real plane there?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Well, on the legs page, on this current direct to intercept, it would show the next restriction down. So again, if we were above 220 right now, like we are, it would show flight level 220 in there. And then once we crossed below that, it would switch to the 14000, and it would give you a descent rate required to meet the 14000 there.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So this is actually kind of nice, because it looks like it's planning the optimal descent rate through the whole thing, so you don't have to do the step downs and stuff. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is. Let's just have a look at my speed. Miraculously, we're doing all right.
Look at that. Nice work.
It's not many times I could have looked away from the PFD for that long and nothing have gone wrong. So you were talking about the fixed page, which is something I don't know much about. Do you mind showing us a little bit of what that's used for?
Yeah, we can do that. That's right on the FMS page, or the FMS right there. We can hit that button.
Yeah.
So basically, we can type in any fix, so airport, nav aid, waypoint, or anything like that into there. So let's actually try typing in the not the next waypoint, but I think Jackson, is that it? The one after Louis?
Yep. I'm just going to add a bit more power.
SN?
JAXSN. See, I just increased my throttle levers then, and initially N1 dropped, and now it's going up. Very odd. Anyway, yes, sorry, JAXSN. We'll put that in.
Yep.
JAXSN. I don't trust this plane not to kill me while I'm looking at something else.
Yeah. And so you can see at the bottom there, if we were to go direct to that fixed, it shows us the course that it would be 056. It shows us the distance remaining, the estimated time en route, and the fuel burn that it would take to get there.
Okay.
And then below Jackson, what we have typed in there in the ref box, or the ref section, we have rad cross and disc cross. So the disc cross, I believe, works in the sim. We can try that.
Yeah.
Let's try to put a 5-mile ring around Jackson. So we can just hit the 5 and then put that in the disc cross,
Okay.
and that should put a 5-mile ring around that fix.
Yes, it has.
Yep. So we can use it as a reference. Sometimes air traffic control will say descend to maintain flight level, I don't know, 350, 5 miles north of Jackson, right?
Right.
And so if it was at Jackson, it'd be easy just to punch that altitude into the FMS, and then it would give us a descent rate required and stuff. But if we wanted this, we could use this as a reference to know where that actually is on the FMS there.
Okay, it's useful.
Yeah.
And the rad cross has got a figure in it, which I didn't put there. Don't know where that's come from.
Right. So I believe that's what that is. That's the radial that you're going to be actually crossing it.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Since you put that 5 distance in there, that's once we turn northbound there, that's what the 219, excuse me, should be coming from.
I see.
In the real airplane, we should be able to put pretty much any radial in there.
Yes.
And it should point us to a green dashed line coming out from the fix, so we can use that as an additional reference if we wanted to be a beam affix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we couldn't make that work earlier, could we? So.
Yeah, the sim's got some different stuff in it from the real airplane.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to make it work.
Yeah. Okay, still that's very interesting and useful. How are we doing speed-wise? Okay, just about okay. Right, do you want to talk about descent a little bit?
Sure, we can do that. So normally in the real airplane, what we'll do is we'll have our altitudes in the FMS there. If we get a descend via clearance, meaning descend via the arrival, we're cleared to fly any altitude or speed that's on the arrival itself, anywhere in there. The direct to intercept page, or the direct intercept page there, will give us a descent rate required to meet each of those restrictions at each fix.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would look at those descent rates, and typically if we're trying to be as efficient as possible, we could descend up to 3,000 feet per minute if we wanted to do like a flight idle descent, which would conserve gas, help us to stay up at our cruising altitude longer. Or if we wanted to be more conservative and make sure that we could actually meet the restrictions, we could do about 2,000 feet per minute.
Okay.
So that's what we would usually do. Right now I'm starting to see the what is that, K-hood?
Yes, K-hood, yeah.
All right. It looks like that fix is showing a 2,100 foot per minute requirement. So normally what I would do is I would look at the most restrictive descent required and plan the descent based off of that.
Okay.
So that's already showing 2,200 feet per minute. I would start descending now at about 2,200 feet per minute.
Okay, right, we can do that.
Yep.
So we want to set a lower altitude.
So let's see, what's our next fix?
Our next fix is Doran.
Dorn. Okay, so the first restriction I see is Perkin, which is after Dorn, above 220.
Yes.
So what we can do is we can set in the altitude bug 220, because that's as low as we want to go.
Okay. Yep, 220.
All right, and then we can just start the vertical speed mode and start down at the required vertical speed to meet that most restrictive restriction.
Okay. And reduce the thrust to keep our Mach 0.77.
Correct.
So that's very different to how I had been flying this. That's really interesting because, yeah, I normally just waited for the top of descent and then tried to match each of these rates, which is pretty labor intensive, to be honest.
It's definitely a fine way to do it, for sure.
Yeah.
And like I said, the FMS in the sim, or the descent rate on the direct to page, seems to work a little differently than it does in the real airplane, or at least the ones that I'm flying. And so it may be best to just use that top of descent bug, because I'm sure that works fine. It's just a little different than how I personally do it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to try something new anyway.
Yeah. And so typically at this time, before it gets too busy with the arrival, typically the crew would be, briefing the weather that's down there at the destination airport, the type of approach that we're planning on doing. We'd get all our frequencies set up.
Right.
If the weather was below, or not below minimums, but if it was IFR and we were having to do an actual ILS approach, we'd set up our minimums there. We'd be getting our landing data, so the landing distance required for our weight of airplane, as well as setting the landing speeds,
Okay.
like the VFDO
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I guess we can start doing that stuff if you want.
Yeah. Let's. Just remind me what runway we're landing on again. I haven't got the chart up.
Sure. I think it's one right.
One right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Let's start setting all that up. So, where would you start? What would you do first?
That's a great question. I guess we can set up our landing data first, and so that would just be our landing speeds.
Okay.
From the tablet, I guess, for the Aerosoft CRJ.
Yeah. So performance page, landing speeds there. VREF of 138. Settle.
Perfect. All right, and then the next thing we can do, let's first see if the FMS has the approach in there. We'll just verify that one right is in there after the arrival.
Okay, so on the legs page.
Correct. Yep, legs page, and then we'll scroll towards the end there. Referencing my chart, it looks like the last fix should be
Waxing.
which one?
Waxing, I think, on the ILS is the last approach. Sorry, the last fix.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm looking at the arrival. So the last one I think is coins before we switch.
Yes, coins at 6,000 feet. Yes, and then yeah, that would make sense.
From there to vectors. So
yeah.
So I'm seeing Mosby up at the top. That's on the ILS, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we've got. All right, so let's go to the previous page on the FMS there.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, perfect. So we finish at coins.
Yes.
And what we're going to do is just assume that since we're not working with air traffic control, we're just going to assume that they're going to give us direct to Mosby after coins.
Yeah.
I think that'll make things easier.
Yeah.
So right now we have that vectors in placeholder fix after coins. What we can do is go to the next page and then put Mosby on top of there.
Okay.
On top of the vectors after coins. We can confirm that, execute. And that should give us direct, that should just kind of put us right onto the fix, so we don't have to give ourselves vectors.
Yeah, this was a good choice of runway. I think this is going to be okay. Yeah. I should just say, I've just noticed that we've switched over to IAS from Mac. Okay. I don't know if that happened at the right time. Probably not.
It's fine for the altitude we're at, so we can just bug. Let's bug 300 knots.
300. Okay.
Yeah. Normally we'd do 320, but 300 should give us a little bit more time to make sure we're all set up.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. There we are. This is 300. So I'll bring the thrust levers back a little. Okay. So we've got our arrival routing sorted out. What next?
Okay. Yeah, we'll just verify our navigation radios should still be in auto-tune mode. So we'll just make sure that the standby frequency to the right of the active is the correct frequency for the ILS that we're doing.
And it isn't. We're after 110.1. Is that the recall you're referring to?
Correct.
Yeah. So we need to change that then, do we?
Yeah. The frequencies I think in the CRJ should change automatically, but we at least in the Aerosoft CRJ, should change automatically, but we usually change that manually in there.
Okay.
So
Let's do that then. .1.
perfect.
And do we want to set that to active or not yet?
We'll leave it in auto tune until we're done with the arrival. So once we pass
Okay.
coins,
Yeah.
we'll switch that frequency into the active.
Okay, that makes
And we'll
sense.
go from there.
Yeah.
All right. So since it's a good weather day, we don't really need to set our minimums for the approach,
No.
since we're not planning to do the full ILS anyway. So yeah, normally we just brief the approach and then keep the descent going.
Okay. Sounds good. So we are approaching flight level 220,
All right.
and we're also approaching Perkin.
All right. So it looks like at 220, we're good at Perkin
Yeah.
and A Hood.
Yeah.
Looks like Bentley is above 13,000, and
Yeah.
Migo is above 11,000,
Yeah.
and then Cavalier is at 250 at 10,000. So that would be our next hard restriction up above, meaning that the next restriction that we need to be below, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So we can plan our descent based off of that Cavalier fix there.
Okay.
So let's go to the direct intercept page and see if it's given us a vertical speed required to hit Cavalier.
Saying
Looks like
2,400.
400.
Yeah.
All right. So we should probably start down now, I would think.
Okay. So altitude to 10,000. My apologies if the edges of this are being cut off in the video. It's very hard to judge because I have an ultra-wide monitor. So back into VS. Bring those thrust levers down, getting very fast. And we want to go now to 2,800.
All right. And I'm not sure how accurate the Aerosoft CRJ is, but in the real airplane, anything towards 3,000 feet per minute is typically pretty close to idle descent.
Right, okay.
And since we'll need to be at 250 knots at Cavalier to meet that restriction too,
Yep.
idle descent should work for that.
Okay, we're in idle now. 2,800 feet per minute set, and the speed's coming back a little towards 300. So at what point would you bug down to 250?
Typically we want to fly the speed that we have bugged, and so if we were planning to slow to 250 now, we could bug it now. Usually what I do is I wait until about 10 miles before the fix where I'm supposed to slow down, just because it seems to be a round number, and then I'll bug that new speed and I'll start slowing down at that point.
Okay.
If you're descending at 320 knots and you need to have a 210 knot restriction, obviously you might want to start slowing down before that.
Yeah.
So it really depends, but usually I bug the next speed about 10 miles prior to the fix at which it's required.
Okay, that's a good tip. So we're passing through the transition level, so I will set local pressure, which is going to be exactly the same.
Okay. And I guess that's actually a good time. We can turn the seatbelt sign back on, and we can run a quick descent check.
Okay. Checklists, descent. Landing elevation, we have not set. It should be 312.
All right.
So I'll do that now. We just had a bing. What was the bing about?
Looks like a caution message.
Oh, ice. Interesting.
Which is surprising because it looks like we're not in any moisture at all.
Yes. But I suppose we better do something about it.
Yeah, we can turn the anti-ice on. So we got the wing anti-ice. We can switch on, and then the cowl anti-ice on as well.
Yeah, okay. This is
what we do.
This is Microsoft Flight Simulator speciality, isn't it? Icing you up, whatever the weather.
Fun. Yep.
So I'm going to do what I did on the way up. Open that pop-up window, which you won't see, and scroll the landing elevation down to whatever I said it was, 310-ish. Call it 320, that'll be fine. Okay. TCAS we haven't fiddled with, so I assume that's still set, is it? Or should we be doing something with that?
No, nothing new. It's okay where it's at.
Okay. Radar is on. Sort of. Doesn't work. It's sort of on. CAS, we just have seatbelt, no smoking, and the anti-ice stuff, which I presume is what we want. Landing data. That's your minimums, I suppose, is it? Which we don't need today. Is that what it means by now?
That's the minimums. It's also the VFTO and V2 go-round speeds,
right,
which we have set as well.
Yes. Okay. And approach briefing.
Yeah.
Which we've sort of done, haven't we? Really.
Nice visual day.
Yeah.
I'll follow the approach guidance down.
Yeah. Look for the airport. Put the plane down at the airport.
That sounds like the plan. One other thing we can do here is just make sure that the thrust reversers are back armed. I noticed that during the cast check there.
Oh yes.
We'll want to have those armed for landing.
Yeah.
Very good.
So we're approaching 10,000, and we're too fast. Too distracted to bug down to 250 at 10 miles. I'll do it now.
We still got a couple miles to go.
Yeah.
We're still at flight idle. We might make it.
Yeah.
Maybe with some spoilers if you wanted to go that far, but anyway.
Yeah, we'll throw a bit of spoiler in there. Why not?
Just for fun.
Oh, just.
Look at that. Just hit it. Just like the real world.
Now I better add some power in.
Cool. So we crossed Traveler at 10,000. Looks like we can set 7,000 in for Cassidy now.
Okay.
Which is our next fix.
Right, there's 7,000. And... so we want to go down at 1,000 feet per minute, if I'm reading that right.
That's right.
Okay. VS. Press it twice for some reason. And set it to 1. Oh, and I've ruined everything. I got down to 250 knots and then busted it almost immediately.
I'm sure air traffic control will give you a pass on that one.
Good.
So another thing we can do to verify that our descent planning is working is we've got that magenta banana, as we call it.
Yes.
We can use that. That's obviously the altitude or the location on the map at which we'll intercept the pre-selected altitude, given our current descent rate and ground speed.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, yeah, it's not
Do
quite...
with that information what you wish.
So, we wanted to be at 7,000 at Kasdi. So, I need to increase our descent rate then, don't I?
Maybe just a little bit. I think the sim isn't quite at, like, I think the descent rate and the direct to page will also work.
Okay.
I think they might it up later, but yeah, it's just an additional reference we use in the real world.
Okay. Well, the direct to page is saying 1,100 feet per minute. We're doing 1,200 feet per minute, so we'll see what happens, I guess.
Looks good. And I guess passing below 10,000 feet, we can verify that all our landing lights and stuff are on.
Yes. Yes. It saves effort if you never switch them off, doesn't it?
There you go.
So what we should have done, of course, I suppose, is turn them off passing 10,000 feet on the way up, and we forgot.
Yeah. As a first officer, it's not something on my normal flow, so it's something I easily forget.
Oh yes,
Just
yeah.
the captain will do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Things are looking good.
Yeah?
I suppose we can turn off the anti-ice now, since we don't have that ice message anymore.
Yes. Keep your fingers crossed. So it's capturing 7,000. And
Alright, so
next altitude is 6,000.
Perfect.
So back into VS mode, and again it reckons 1,000 feet per minute will do us.
Sounds good.
I really hope you can see what I'm doing on the video. I'm going to zoom in to make it very clear. I'm moving this wheel to set this figure here.
Great. And then we'll center that heading bug.
Oh
one
yes.
more time.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then typically what I do is once we start getting close to our destination, I'll start zooming in on that MFD map, just so there's a little more to see there. Good. So what I think we'll do, after we cross coins at 6,000, let's descend down to 3,000.
Okay.
Let's just pretend air traffic control is giving us that vector to Mosby now.
Yes, okay. So we can dial that in now, I guess, can we?
Yeah, let's dial in 3,000.
That's
And
3,000.
then we'll just do an idle descent down there just to get down there quickly so we can get stabilized.
Okay. So to do an idle descent, just increase the vertical speed.
Sure, that's one way to do it.
Or sorry, how were you going to suggest doing it?
So hit speed mode twice.
Oh, this is new. Speed.
All right. Actually, just the one time looks good.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
I misspoke. So hit it one more time, the speed mode,
Yeah.
and then one more time.
Okay.
It's like through that. So you'll go in. You'll see you're in descent mode now.
Oh yes.
So now the flight director is going to pitch for that airspeed. So if you do idle descent, you just thrust levers at idle. It'll basically give you the maximum descent rate you can, and still follow that same airspeed.
Right. I never knew that.
Yep.
Fantastic.
It basically works opposite the climb, but not a lot of people actually use it. But it's actually great if you need to lose altitude as fast as you can, but while maintaining a constant airspeed.
Yes. And obviously it selected the speed that I was flying when I pressed it, which was lower than I'd intended it to be, really. But I guess there's no point accelerating at this stage, is there?
Yeah, that's fine. Usually around this spot, I'd slow at about 210.
Okay. So if
That'll
I
give it,
adjust that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'll give us enough buffer for our first couple flap settings when that comes time.
Okay. And I notice we've got blue needles down here for the loc.
Yep. So let's actually start putting in the flaps since we're pretty close. Let's do flaps 1, flaps 8, and flaps 20.
Okay.
So 3 notches there. And let's actually make it easy on ourselves. Let's bug 1,900 feet for waxing.
Okay.
Just keep the descent coming.
Ah, I missed it. Let's press
That's
speed
okay.
again, right?
Yep. Yeah, I'll press one more time. There we go. That should get us stabilized. So now we can go back down to our navigation radio and punch in our frequency that we want.
Okay, so we've got it pre-selected, so press this again, is it? No?
Yep.
Yes?
So you want, yep, 110.1, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So now what we'll do, since we're lined up with the runway,
Yeah.
we'll center the heading bug.
Center the heading bug, yeah.
We'll go into heading mode.
Heading mode, yeah.
We're going to switch our nav source to the green needles, which is the navigation radios.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. And then we'll hit the approach mode.
Hit the approach mode. Okay.
All right, so we'll see that captured our localizer there. Our
Yeah.
glide slope is still above us, so that's why the GS is in white. Once the glide slope comes down, that should capture.
Okay.
And the pilot should fly the ILS for us.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
All right. So now I guess what we can do, we can get, we can put our landing gear down.
Okay.
And then set the rest of our flaps all the way down to 45. And set our final straighten speed from the tablet there.
Okay, I noticed my speed's bleeding off very quickly, which is making me anxious. So VREF, yes?
Yep.
138. Speed. Okay, 138 set.
All right. Very good. Then we just use our thrust levers to manage that speed.
Okay.
And the autopilot should follow the crosshairs all the way down on the ILS.
Okay. So it is a known bug that sometimes it doesn't capture the glide slope.
Okay.
We'll see. It's hit and miss. And I'm letting my speed get a little low, which is never good.
If you want to, you could increase the altitude bug to a couple thousand feet above, and then just be ready to decrease the vertical speed if you need to, and just kind of follow the glide slope down with the vertical speed if it doesn't capture.
Okay, to capture, sorry, a couple of 100 feet above, did you say?
A couple of thousand feet,
Couple
just to
of
get it out of the way.
Oh, I
Because
see.
when it's in cat mode, it won't let you descend via vertical speed.
I see, okay.
So if it doesn't capture here, oh look, there it goes.
It has.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
I was just going to say, because since the localizer is captured, you can see that with the Loc 1 in green on the left
Yes.
side of FMA there.
Yeah.
If the glide slope didn't capture, you could manually adjust the vertical speed to kind of follow the glide slope down visually if it didn't capture for some reason.
I see, that's a good tip. I'm with you now. I was a little slow on the uptake, but I'm there now.
Sometimes we do that in real life. If it's a visual and we're following an ILS procedure, we'll just manually change the vertical speed just because it's a little easier for us.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. And then I suppose we can run that before landing check.
Oh yes, we should, shouldn't we? Okay, passenger signs are on, flight attendants doesn't exist. Thrust reversers are on, landing gear down. Slats and flaps are at whatever it is, 45.
Beautiful.
Now it's lost the, you see it's lost the glide slope a little here. We're getting a bit low, so I'm going to disengage the autopilot, and that's the other thing it does quite often.
Good to know. Sometimes the real airplanes will do some interesting stuff too, and the answer is always just to turn the automation off and hand fly it if you can.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that you do
Autopilot
quite
off,
often have
figure
that.
it out on the ground.
Yeah.
300.
And you don't want to flare too much in this plane, do you? That's
200.
something I've heard.
Yep. Not too much or too little.
Yeah.
Just the right amount.
That's something that's we probably don't have time to talk through right now, I suppose.
Right.
50, 40, 30, 20.
And then once the nose wheel touches down, thrust reversers and spoilers, I guess, yeah?
You got it. Yep. The ground lift dumping should deploy automatically.
Ah, yes, I think it... yeah, I'd forgotten that. So there's no
Yep.
need to use the spoiler lever after all.
Correct.
Okay.
The and some airliners, I know they have you arm the spoilers.
Yeah.
But in the CRJ, the spoilers are continuously armed based off of the weight being on the wheels and other criteria that the airplane senses that it's landing.
Right.
So there's nothing really required from the pilots to arm the spoilers.
Okay. Yeah, I did know that once upon a time. So I'm getting dreadful stutters. I don't know why. I don't usually. Maybe it's something to do with us talking and recording, but now it's just totally frozen. So you will note that we landed the plane and have exited the runway. There's a little bit of a gap because my computer froze for about 5 minutes and I had a minor nervous breakdown, but it did capture the video, so we're going to continue as if nothing happened. So what do we do after exiting the runway, Michael?
Sounds good. So once we're clear of the runway, we can do the after landing checklist.
Okay. Checklists after landing. APU. Probably want to start that, do we?
Yep.
So power, fuel, and then start stop once we have the APU in byte etc. up there. APU SOV open. Transponder / radar standby and off. Now, I guess you would leave yours on, would you?
Correct. Yep. We'd leave it on until we get parked at the gate.
Okay, let's do that then. Slats and flaps. I'll retract them. Lights. So landing lights off. Strobe lights off. And the rest as they are, I guess.
Yep.
Probes. Off.
Perfect. And now we can taxi to our gate.
Right. Any idea where we're going here?
Actually, first thing, let's clear the flight director because it just looks sloppy when you're on the ground.
Okay.
So we can hit that flight director button just to the left of the autopilot disconnect.
Okay.
Good. And then usually what we do is we'll switch the nav source back to white needles or the FMS just for the next crew because they'll obviously depart in white needles, just kind of to reset the airplane there.
Okay, that's interesting.
Cool. And then there's, as for your question about parking, there's some regional jet parking. If we go up ahead and take a left on Kilo, and then a right turn on Bravo,
okay,
we should find some regional jet parking.
Sounds good. Look at that, seems smooth as anything now.
Just needed a breather.
Yes. Could have picked a better moment for its breather, but never mind.
I agree.
So while we taxi in, I've got a couple of questions about the landing,
Sure.
Or about the approach. Sorry, are we taking this first left? Yes, we are, aren't we?
Yep.
We extended the flaps in sort of two big chunks. Is that fairly standard, or was that because the aircraft had got ahead of us?
The aircraft was getting kind of ahead of us. Typically, it's not wrong to do it that way if we need to slow down pretty quick. Like it's completely fine.
Right.
But usually we'll increase those increments one at a time.
Okay.
A couple seconds after each other.
Yeah.
Usually, flaps. The first section, flaps 1, which is just the forward slats, will come out by itself, or along with 8 and 20.
Okay.
And then the gear comes down along with flaps 30 usually, and then flaps 45. So it's usually 3 or 4 segments there.
Okay.
I just noticed the distance to go was decreasing rapidly, so I was like, let's get configured for landing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it
Good
worked
question.
beautifully.
Yeah.
This is Bravo, I think.
Okay.
Looks like Bravo.
Looks like it. Yep. We should see those parking positions off to the left there.
Ah, yeah, these first ones.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know if they're. It looks like they're hard stands
That's all right.
or they're ranked though.
Do us. How do we get over to them?
I'm not even sure.
No, it's not clear, is
Might
it?
just have to cross that yellow line there.
No, I won't do it. I'm gonna follow a line, any line. The pretty bit of the terminal's over here. Let's go over here.
Sure. Yeah, any gate's fine, obviously.
Yeah. To be fair, I'll probably cut some of this out.
Sure.
I don't think the people need to see my obsessive taxiing.
Good technique.
Thanks.
Everyone could learn from it.
All right, maybe I'll leave it in then.
Gotta stay on those lines.
And I guess we turn off the taxi light before pulling onto a stand, do we?
That's a good idea. Yep.
Yeah.
Try not to blind the marshaller.
Yeah. Oh, this could have been made for us from the looks of it.
Beautiful. It actually is a good-looking parking spot right in front of that part of the terminal building.
Yeah. That'll do. Set the parking brake. What now?
Great. So I guess we can. Typically, we'll wait for the ground crew to give the signal that the chocks are in. So
Right.
we can. I guess we can use the tablet to put those chocks in.
Yeah. Aircraft. Wheel chocks in place.
All right. Then we can shut the engines down and open up the doors and run our shutdown checklist.
Okay. And to shut the engines down, we flick the
just pull on
switches
that red lever.
Yeah.
That'll allow the thrust lever to come down below the idle detent and
Okay.
shut off the fuel supply.
Okay. Open the door.
Yeah. Turn the seatbelt sign off.
Seatbelt sign off. Yeah.
We can turn the transponder to the standby position.
Okay.
That looks good.
Yeah. And checklist now, is it?
Yep. Shutdown checklist.
Okay. Shutdown checklist. Parking brake set. Seatbelts off. Thrust levers shut off. Anti-ice off. Fuel pumps. Turn them off.
All right.
Beacon and nose wheel steering to off. Beacon. Nose wheel steering.
Great.
And that's us.
We made it.
We did.
Finally.
Not a bad bit of parking either.
Oh, it's beautiful. Right on there.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for that. I really enjoyed it. I learned a huge amount, and I'm sure everyone who's watched the lesson will also have learned a lot. So I really appreciate the time you've given to this.
Yeah, not a problem. It's been a pleasure, and I had a lot of fun with it.
I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Now, I understand you have your own YouTube channel. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. My channel name is AUPilot77, and the channel's been there for a while, but I haven't done a whole lot with it yet. I just got a new gaming computer, and I got the new simulator. And as a current airline pilot and former flight simulator enthusiast, I'd like to get back into it and make some videos relating to, my airline pilot life, as well as my former flight instructor years, some tutorials and stuff like that. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with it, and I'd appreciate if you gave me a subscription for there. So AUPilot77.
That sounds absolutely brilliant. I'll put a link to your channel in the video description down below if people want to check it out. Thank you once again. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, do please give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already. And I hope to see you again soon here on Philbert Flies. Take care. Bye-bye.